Good morning and welcome to you. Travel and Things in association with Rugged Wear, Real People, Real Clothing, Real Solutions presents In Conversation With. I am your host, David Batshoffen. And before I introduce my guest today, winter is not coming, people. Winter is here, specifically on the Highveld. It is a bitterly cold day in Johannesburg. In fact, it's so cold that for the first time ever in the 14 years that I've lived in this particular house, I have a heater in my office. That's how cold it is. But let's find out how cold it is where Reilly Mooney is. Reilly is the project coordinator for the Waterberg Wild Dog Initiative. Reilly, good morning. Welcome to you.
Good morning, David. Thank you so much for having me this morning.
How cold is it where you are?
It's quite chilly here, but we're a little bit further north at this stage, so it is nice in the sun. But yeah, the mornings have been getting quite cold, that's for sure.
Tell me a bit about the Wild Dog Initiative. How did it start? And before I go there, that accent is not South African. That has to be USA. And I'm going to take a stab, Midwest.
You are correct. It is a Midwest accent. Can you be a little bit more specific? I'm a little bit embarrassed that you picked it up so quickly that I do not have a fully South African accent, but
I'm, I'm, go- I'm going to say Wisconsin. How close am I?
yeah, you're correct. I am actually from Wisconsin in the United States. I grew up there. I spent my whole life there. I've only been in South Africa for 2 years now. So I have a little bit of a South African spin on my Wisconsin accent, but yeah, still not South African yet.
It's all good. But now I believe that when you came here, the wild dogs were not your first love. You, in fact, worked with baboons.
Yes, you're correct. You're very correct. I actually came out to South Africa 2 years ago to help start up a field research station monitoring chacma baboons in the wild. So it was baboons that initially brought me out to South Africa, but it was wild dogs that made me stay.
Fair enough. Now, currently, I recently visited with your dogs. It took them a while to come in, or to come and say, yeah, we'll make an appearance. But two things caught me about this particular pack, and we'll go into the specifics of this pack in a moment. One, they have an inordinate amount of white in their coats.
Yeah.
And two, they didn't seem to smell as bad as the other dog packs that I've encountered over the years.
Look, I'll tell you, the white in their coats is absolutely beautiful. I have a very biased opinion, but these dogs to me are the most beautiful dogs in the world right now.
Right.
Particularly the young dogs, like you've got pictured here. She's absolutely stunning, and just the amount of white is remarkable. I mean, most of them have very white front chests, and you can really pick them out. In terms of the smell, I can attest that they do smell quite horrible, especially if you have to get close to them. Like when we fit tracking collars on them and we actually have to, touch and handle the dogs, they do smell quite bad.
So tell us a bit about this pack. What makes it so special, A, and B, the interaction that you're currently doing with the dogs in order to raise money to fund this initiative.
Yes, yes. So this pack is absolutely remarkable in the Waterberg. It is the only known breeding pack that we have in the Waterberg at this stage, so it's the most important pack. We have a few other small groups of wild dogs that we get reports of throughout the Waterberg, but to our knowledge, those are only single sex dispersal groups, so they don't have an alpha male or an alpha female, and they're looking to find other dogs to form these packs. So this is the only pack with an alpha male and alpha female that's actually reproducing and having pups. They're the only fully formulated pack, which makes them incredibly special and incredibly valuable to us in the Waterberg. There are only about 23 known adult wild dogs left in the Waterberg, and this pack contains 7 of them. So they've got a very high proportion of the Waterberg wild dogs. And then
Well,
what we're trying to do during this pack's denning season, so at this stage now, the pack is successfully denning again. They do have 7 new pups with them that are at the den site. Nobody's seen them or anything in person yet. We just have some very blurry camera trap photos that we've been able to help ID and count the number of pups that we have. But during this period, these dogs are going to stay around the den site for about 2 to 3 months. They've already been here for about 2 months, so we're nearing the end of the denning season. But during this time, they pose a pretty big threat to financially making it difficult on the properties that are hosting them. So these Waterberg dogs are free roaming dogs. They occur mostly on private properties that don't have any sort of formal protection, all with their own land uses and different ideas and values about conservation and about African wild dogs. And so the property that the pack is currently denning on is only about 5,000 hectares. And all of the neighboring properties in that area are also about 1 to 3,000 hectares. So very, very small, and definitely not large enough to host a wild dog pack without feeling some sort of negative impact financially on their stock numbers. And so what we're doing is during this time, it's the only time that the pack remains stationary. Otherwise, they're moving constantly between all of the different properties. So it's the only time that we have a chance to actually show these dogs to people. So we're using this as a way to raise awareness about these beautiful dogs, be able to see them in such close proximity, but also generate a little bit of an income to help offset some of those costs associated with protecting the pack during this time. I mean, it is their most vulnerable time. They've got young pups with them. This alpha female, she does have an injury on her right leg that we're busy monitoring. And so we want to make sure that the pack is safe during this time. And the way to do that is really by increasing tolerances for these dogs in the area, by providing some sort of financial income stream for the landowners.
I have to say that one of the guests on the vehicle that I was on, his question to the fellow from your organization that took us to the pack was, how fast do they clean up a carcass? And that Impala proved it. I mean, start to finish. This was actually a slow eat, because I've seen them devour a wildebeest from alive to hooves and horns in 5 minutes or less, a large pack.
Yes, no, this pack is it's only 7 adults, but they can finish an Impala in just minutes. They're definitely not wasteful eaters. They don't leave behind any big portions of the Impala or anything like that. They are very quick when they want to feed.
Reilly, are there questions around how you introduce the dogs to the people on these particular excursions? The fact that there was a carcass there when we were there, and they were, I don't want to say called in, but they were invited in by using calls.
Mm, 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 mm. No, it is a tool that we use to help mitigate conflict. So there's obviously a trade-off between, showing these dogs to people and putting them in such close proximity of people. They're only about 20 to 30 meters away from the game viewer. The reason that the wild dogs have been able to persist for so long in this area is that they're very elusive. Nobody ever sees them. And so it's actually very hard to persecute them if a person does want to persecute them. So it is a little bit of a trade-off to get them used to coming into these specific calls that we use, and to get them a little bit more comfortable with vehicles, because it can pose a risk to them. But there's also enormous benefits in just getting people out there to see these dogs. I mean, most times of the year, nobody ever gets to see them. The first time I ever saw these dogs was only about 2 months ago now, and I've been working with them for a year. And so they're very, very elusive and very hard to find. But it also, that kind of elusive nature generates a lot of myths about the dogs. People only see their tracks on the property or carcasses along their fence lines. And so of course they don't have, a lot of love for the dogs, because they never even get to see them. They
Right.
don't know anything about their personalities, what they look like. And so just being able to bring people out to see these dogs is already changing mindsets in the community. People are loving to see the pictures and the videos that we're able to get. They recognize the individuals now. They have their favorite dogs. And now when this pack becomes fully free roaming again at the end of the denning season, when they leave this area, they're going to be tolerated a lot more on the individual properties, because people are going to be able to remember, what wild dogs are on their properties. Now there's individuals associated with those tracks. They don't yet have names, but eventually there will be names associated with them as well. And so it is a little bit of a trade-off, habituating them in this way to come into these call-ups, to come into vehicles, but we do it in a very structured and scientific way. These dogs are only used to very specific calls that we use in specific areas. There's nothing to say that if we try and do this exact same method in a slightly different location, they probably won't come in, because they're very curious and very concerned, by nature. They've got that fear of humans, but they're comfortable now. They know that these specific calls that we use mean it's dinner time in a very specific location, and they know what to expect. They know that when they come up, they'll see a game viewer now. People aren't going to be walking around them on foot. We're not going to be making loud noises and trying to elicit and solicit their attention in any way. We're trying to keep it as minimally invasive as possible, while also recognizing that there is a huge, huge benefit in the ecotourism value of these dogs.
Now, this particular dog, people may just be able to see there is a 6 on her back leg.
Mhm,
Um, it wasn't,
mhm.
you didn't tattoo it there. It's part of her pattern. Is the 9
No.
on the other side of this dog, or is it the 9 on a different dog?
We do have a number 9, but it's on a different dog. And so that's two of the easiest ways to tell these young females apart is the one has a very clear 6 and the other has a very clear 9.
You mentioned the farms in the area. Are the landowners buying into what you're doing? And are they going to be supportive at the end of the day, as long as obviously they're not losing stock to this particular pack?
You know, they are very supportive of what we're trying to do. The Waterberg Wild Dog Initiative is a community driven initiative. And so I am the only full time employee, and I answer to a steering committee that's made up of community members that have varying ideals and interests when it comes to wild dog conservation. You know, we've got farmers on the committee, we've got conservationists, wild dog specialists. So we're trying to take everybody's perspectives into account when we make decisions. But we're really set up to help the farmers and the other landowners in this community. We want to protect the wild dogs. We want to keep safe space for them, but we don't want that to come at any sort of a cost to our landowner livelihoods in the area. And so people are recognizing that, you know, we're here to help them. We're not here just to help the wild dogs. We're also here to help the community members. And so when the pack outside of the denning season is staying on properties for longer periods of time than what they'd be tolerated for, we try everything that we can to get out there and to help the situation by trying to encourage the dogs to leave the area, helping the farmer with anti-predator mitigation methods, things of that nature. And so people are really supporting the initiative, supporting what we're trying to do because they recognize that we're here to help them as well.
And what is going to happen after the no, let me rephrase that because I know where I was going and then I went off somewhere else. I believe the den has moved 3 times already. They're sort of going further and further
Yes,
away from this particular point where you are feeding them.
yes. So when they at their first den site, we were only calling them in from an area about 400 to 500 meters away, about 500 or so. And now they're about a kilometer away. So they're coming in quite far, which is why it took them quite a while to come up when you were able to take these pictures because they're coming from a kilometer away. And that's over multiple different copies and elevation differences that they're climbing. But this moving of den sites is indicative of the pack and the pups getting a little bit older. But also what we found from some camera trap images is it seems as though porcupines and bush pigs may be giving the dogs a little bit of a hassle around those den sites. It actually may be that the dogs are choosing old porcupine dens or burrows and the porcupines are, you know, fighting back a little bit. So they've now moved den sites about 3 times. But
And
that also means that we're nearing the end of the denning season. You know, the pups are getting a lot bigger. They're able to move those distances now, and eventually they're going to stop staying at specific dens and they're going to become fully free roaming again.
there's nothing sadder, and I've not seen it with wild dogs, but I have seen it on a variety of different TV vet programs where dogs arrive with a face full of porcupine quills, and and they're not easy to pull out because people don't, I don't think, realize that those things are barbed at the end, and once they're in, it's sedation time, and then it's Leatherman all over the place to get those barbs out or to get the quills out.
Yeah. Yeah. So we actually do have some camera trap pictures. They're quite remarkable of a porcupine in front of the den. And then the next picture, the porcupine is in the den. And then the next picture has the porcupine in the den, and the alpha female is standing outside of the den, staring at the den. And then the next picture, you see the pups come out of the den. So clearly the pups were in the den with the porcupine. And then a few photos later, the alpha female has a porcupine quill in her thigh, just the one quill. And we've seen her since then, and she's doing fine. But obviously, they had some sort of interaction with that porcupine there.
There are no other apex predators in the area that could interact with this particular packet currently, is there, Riley?
There are. So wild dogs, their natural predator is going to be lions, and up in the Waterberg, we don't really have free roaming lions. There have been a few cases of lions coming in from Botswana, but it's not common. So in this area, there other apex predators that could pose a threat to them would be brown hyenas, even some large leopards, and the occasional spotted hyena. We do have a very small free roaming population of spotted hyenas still in the area. But luckily for these guys, the threats from apex predators are quite low. because there really aren't many others around. What we've found with our camera traps in this area is that there's actually a family of brown hyenas living somewhere near where the wild dogs are denning at the moment, but there hasn't seemed to be any sort of negative interaction between the two species. But it's something that we're monitoring because they can pose a threat to the pups at the den.
If nothing, I think we waited over an hour for the dogs. Didn't really matter because I'll photograph anything while I wait, from sky to rock. But what I do love is your game viewer. That needs to be in a museum. It really and truly does. It was so special. I've got photographs of the dash, which will come up on a blog posting shortly, just because I thought it was so cool.
Yes, yes. No, it definitely does add to the experience. That's a game viewer that's been lent to us for use during this denning season. So it's not an official WWDI game viewer or anything, but it is, yeah, it's a beautiful old game viewer and it's got a lot of quirks, which just makes the experience that much more awesome.
Has it ever happened that you've taken guests to the site, the dogs haven't come in? And if that does happen, then how long do you wait? It was Clinton, I think, that was with us that evening. And I was scared to ask him. It was the elephant in the room question, as far as I was concerned, is how long do you wait before calling this whole thing off? So it was only after the dogs had come and gone. I said to him, how much longer would you have waited? And he said, another 5 minutes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, they definitely test our patience, that's for sure. This pack has taken anywhere from between 3 minutes to an hour and a half to come in, and there has been two occasions where they haven't come in at all. One of those times we were just a little bit late to call them in, so the pack had actually gone off on a hunt in the opposite direction, and so there's no way that they could have heard us trying to call them. The wind was also blowing against us that day, so it just really there's a multitude of factors that made it quite difficult. And then one other time we tried in the morning, and these dogs aren't really used to coming into call ups in the morning. They're creatures of habit. And so they're comfortable now. They know kind of in the afternoon hours, we're going to be calling them in at the same spot. We tried it in the morning and it didn't work. They didn't come in. They were at the den, they heard us, but they decided not to come in. But it is what it is. They are wild dogs, and at the end of the day, they are completely free roaming. We don't dictate their movements. We don't keep them from doing anything. All we can do is try our best. But yeah, it has happened. We typically, when we do it in the evenings, if they're not in when it's starting to get dark, then we are going to call it, because even if they do come in, then you won't be able to see them because it's dark. But in the morning when we tried for about 3 hours. It was quite long that we were trying. But yeah, they're, like I said, they are free roaming dogs. So if they decide tomorrow that they want to leave and go up to Botswana, then we cry a lot because we're sad, but we let them. They leave and they go up to Botswana. That's what makes this pack so special.
How far is Botswana from where they currently are denning?
Oh, yeah, I think in a straight line, I would think about 70 kilometers. So it's actually not very far. But I don't have my maps in front of me, so I could be off a little bit, but it's not far at all. And we have records of dogs moving in between the Waterberg and Botswana quite frequently. We get the occasional sighting of a small dispersal group moving. So we think that dogs enter the Waterberg, or we know that dogs enter the Waterberg from Botswana, from Zimbabwe, and from northern Limpopo. Actually, on the day that you came out to see this free roaming pack, I couldn't be there because I was busy with another little group of wild dogs down in the Royberg area of the Waterberg. And it was just a small dispersal group of two males, but they had actually come down to the Waterberg from northern Limpopo. So they traveled, I think it was about 300 kilometers to get here, which is absolutely incredible. Yeah, yeah.
Have they not heard of one of the air charters? They could have hopped on a plane. They could have flown down.
Yeah. No, exactly. But they'll travel huge distances to try to find females. So that's just a small little bachelor group of two males, and they're looking for females. And so we're busy watching them now to see if they're able to find any females. Because to my knowledge, I'm not aware of any other free roaming females in that area. We are getting a few reports of other free roaming dogs, but I have no idea if they're male or female or anything. So we'll see. We'll see if they're able to unite.
Well, I wish you the best of luck. Reilly, if people are interested in coming, they've only got another week, basically, maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less. It depends on whether the pack decides to move on. How do they get hold of you? And yes, contact details, basically.
Yes, absolutely. I can share my contact details with you as well. But also, if anybody just goes on our Facebook page, Waterberg Wild Dogs, I very frequently post my email address and my phone number where people can contact me to book visits visits to go out and see the dogs. We do expect that we have about another week, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks if we're lucky to come out and see the pack before they leave the area. But it all depends on them. So at this stage, if you are interested in coming out to see the dogs, please get in contact with me and I can pencil you in for dates and we can confirm a little bit closer to the actual date and I can let you know if the dogs are still in the area.
Because the I was going to say the biggest town close by that people may know is Water, which is an interesting little place in itself. But so if you need to know sort of where are the dogs, it's about a 3-hour drive from Johannesburg. It's a very simple, very easy drive. Not too. I didn't find much traffic on the roads. The only holdup was at the Carousel toll plaza. They've got, or they had, I don't know if it's still there, roadblocks. So if you are going up, please take permits, work permits. Otherwise, you may get turned around and you don't want to do that.
Yes, yes. We are watching the COVID cases as well and the restrictions. At this stage, we're not promoting any travelers from Gauteng to come up for leisure travel, but we'll see what the restrictions say on Sunday, I think marks when it's supposed to end. So we'll see if it's extended. But if there are people from Gauteng that want to come up and see the dogs, please get in contact with me and we can pencil in dates. And once those restrictions are lifted, we can get you up here to see them while they're still in the area.
Great stuff. Reilly, thank you so much for chatting to me. I wish you and the pack the very best of success. I do hope that all the pups make it safely to adulthood and that they form the basis of a group that will be recognized and will be, I almost want to use the word cherished, but respected in the area by the landowners and realize that they have something very special here that can bring them a tourist eco income rather than deciding to take matters into their own hands if they lose a sheep or something like that.
Yes, yes, yes. No, I think it's good things to come for the initiative. You know, we're doing a lot of work in the area to ease tensions and it's been working so far. Just the fact that we've been able to get people out there to see this pack though has really, it's made all of the difference because before this we didn't know even what the dogs looked like. We never get to see them outside of the denning season. So it's
Well,
remarkable.
now you've got
Yeah.
lots of pictures, you've got lots of stories to tell. My guest today on In Conversation with has been Reilly Mooney, who is the project coordinator for the Waterberg Wild Dog Initiative. Reilly, thanks very much for joining me.
Thank you so much, David. I appreciate you having me.